14 Worst Gamblers of Hollywood's Golden Age. Stars who didn't just bet on the ponies or flirt with roulette. They bet their homes, their careers, their reputations, and sometimes it feels like they gambled with their very souls. So tuck away your wallet, keep your lucky charm close, and let's roll the dice on Hollywood's most irresistible high rollers. George Raft. George Raft didn't need wardrobe to look like trouble. He brought his own. That famous coin flip in Scarface landed because Raft had flipped real coins in real rooms, where a wrong look got you escorted to the curb. When he made it to Hollywood, the spotlight didn't bleach out the edges. It sharpened them. Raft loved the action. Craps for momentum, poker for nerve, side bets for sport. Havana, Lake Tahoe, Las Vegas. He collected casino carpets like frequent flyer stamps. Losing $50,000 in one night, worth far more today, wasn't just a bad beat. It was tuition for a degree in appetite. But Raft's bets weren't confined to felt. He bet his career on choices he couldn't unmake, turning down roles that felt disrespectful to the real tough guys he admired. Those passes opened doors for Bogart. High Sierra, Casablanca, and the Legend Ledger tilted the other way. By the 1960s, Raft was shaking hands as a Vegas greeter. Still handsome, still magnetic, still within whisper distance of dice. The man who once set the room's temperature learned how cold the floor can be when luck changes. Frank Sinatra, chairman of the board and the betting table. Frank Sinatra's voice made the room hush. His presence made the room move. In Vegas, he was both the headliner and the headline, the man the casinos courted and the man the dice seemed to flirt with. His name brushed up against casino ownership, Lake Tahoe's Cal Neva mystique, endless comp suite, the velvet logic. Blackjack was theater for him. A $10,000 hand here, a swing there. The table as a stage where bravado and boredom fight to a draw. A car's worth of chips? Tip big, laugh bigger. Torch a week's earnings? Order another round and tell a better story. High play bought access rooms, favors, leeway. When investigations started sniffing around casino money and influence in the 1960s, Sinatra was too savvy not to read the room. He moved along, but the ghost of the high limit never quite left him. For Frank, gambling was never just a vice. It was a geometry of power. Who gets the corner booth? Who gets the call? Who gets to bend the night to his tempo? Dean Martin, the Morden. Drunk gambler who always smiled. Dean Martin sold an illusion so smooth it fooled the mirror. The forever buzzed crooner who never missed a note, never smudged a cuff, never lost a wink. The act worked because Dino delivered it with warmth. He wasn't hustling you. He was inviting you to the world's best lounge. Under the light, jokes like butter. Off the clock. Craps, quick horse bets. I'm only happy when I'm losing. He joked a line that's funny until you hear the ache beneath it. Dino loved the ritual as much as the risk. The click of dice, the green felt, the camaraderie of men pretending tomorrow doesn't exist. He had income streams, records, TV, movies that could cushion almost any loss, and that made danger feel like a game he'd already won. But money doesn't keep score the way memory does. Friends watched the hundreds of thousands leave and return and leave again, a tide that disguised what gambling really took, and the parts of yourself you only meet when the room is silent. Sammy Davis Jr. There was a one-man variety show, a human switchboard who could route song into dance, into mimicry, into pathos, and back again without dropping a wire. On the floor, that same electricity could fry the circuits. He didn't sidle up to risk, he hugged it. Roulette and blackjack were his battlegrounds, big spins, big splits, $25,000 a turn energy, the kind of action that makes even dealers breathe tighter. Win a house in an hour? Possible. Lose a house in the same time? Equally possible. And when the wheel took more than it gave, Sammy still strode onto stage with the grin, the tap. The snap because the show must go on, and the show is how the debts get paid. The real cost wasn't only cash. Gambling rearranged calendars, strained marriages, and tightened circles. Yet Sammy kept returning to the wheel for the oldest reason. In the split second before the ball drops, the world holds its breath. For a man who could do everything, that was the one thing he couldn't do. Stop chasing the moment before the result. Clark Gable, the king who bet like a commoner. Clark Gable had a crown he never asked for and a poker face he was happy to use. The King of Hollywood moniker stuck. Gable let it hang while he lived like a working man who got very lucky. Cards fit that ethic. Poker as a trade, not a costume. Reading eyes instead of scripts. Farm boy bluntness translated into table logic. During World War II, the game kept the edges from fraying hands, played between missions. A few chips moving around to make fear look like fun. Back home, cadence remained. Ranch games that stretched past midnight. Bets that climbed because nobody wanted to be the first to blink. Losing $20,000 in a night sounded dramatic. Gable reportedly shrugged. Money was paper. Cards were poetry. After tragedy tore a hole in him, the stakes felt different. Gambling can numb or sharpen. For Gable, it did both, depending on the night. He never bottomed out. Investments, discipline, and a certain unquestioned steadiness kept the lights on. But even kings learn the lesson everyone else does. Risk doesn't know your billing. Joe E. Louis, the singer who lost it all. Joe E. Louis had a voice that could melt an ice bucket and a taste for bets that could refill it. In the 20s and 30s, his name meant a good time. Songs, jokes, a wink you trusted. Gambling wasn't accessory, it was central. Tracks, tables, anything that let fortune put on a show. Then came the night when a debt turned into a sentence. The attack that followed cost him the tool he'd built his life around, his voice, and nearly cost him the life around it. Most men would have quit the game. Louis crawled back to the mic, then back to the window where the odds are always, almost. He lost. Fortunes, found another gear, lost them again, the way tides do business with shorelines. His story inspired a film. The film inspired audiences to remember his name. In another way, it's the saddest jackpot. Immortality indexed to pain. Louis teaches a cruel arithmetic. Gambling can take the very thing that earns back what gambling takes. Zeppo Marx, the quiet brother who built a casino plan. Zeppo played the handsome anchor in a family of glorious chaos, and audiences mistook restraint for absence. Off-screen, he was a thinker with a blueprint. He left the act, built legit businesses, and treated gambling like a spreadsheet. Slot machines weren't toys to him. They were machines with inputs, outputs, failure modes, and maintenance schedules. Equity in clubs wasn't status, it was leverage. Poker wasn't romance, it was calculus. And the first formula anyone learns, how to walk away with the original stake intact. Zeppo's restraint reads like a magic trick in a town that bleeds bravado. He kept the wins quiet, the losses microscopic, lifestyle tasteful. You could miss his success because he didn't dress it up, but he offers the counter-story in our parade of chaos. A gambler who treated luck like a factor to be minimized instead of a god to be worshipped. Mickey Rooney lived like he was double-booked with destiny. Child star, studio workhorse, comeback chameleon, he could perform anything except moderation. Form guides looked like scripture. On a good day, the long shot looked like prophecy. The problem with long shots, they're long shots. Rooney would slide a paycheck under the counter at Santa Anita and come home lighter, then stake the car, then pawn something shiny, then take a role that paid less respect but more immediately. The number floating around millions in debt at a moment when that number had a Nevin Pruvitter of 6. Different gravity was less a statistic and more a portrait of compulsion wearing a tux. And yet he persisted. Survivors often do. Rooney could manufacture reinvention like a machine press. Each new gig, another chip back. Each new marriage, another attempt at security that wasn't denominated in dollars. But even reinvention has a rate. If life is a series of second acts, gambling writes the cost of admission in ink. Lana Turner. High roller Lana Turner's close-up could stop a city bus. Off-screen, the tables offered motion when stillness hurt. Blackjack is fast, decisive. Bingo is patterned, oddly soothing. Both promise a world where the rules are clear. And the next card is both mystery and medicine. When life detonated a scandal so loud, it rang the bell of every newsroom in America. The casino offered a muffled room where the only story that mattered was the number in front of you. Chips aren't sympathy, they're simple. Put one down, get one back, or don't. The uncomplicated transaction feels like relief. The costs crept in sideways, assets discreetly converted into chips, a little at a time, glamour liquefied into credit. The calendar bending around just one more night. Turner had been packaged as a fantasy. Gambling let her be a person with a pulse and a problem. She didn't need to win, she needed motion. Orson Welles, the genius who bet on himself and lost. Orson Welles was a casino built into a man. He gambled on form, on editing, on the audacity to tell a camera where to stand and a studio where to wait. The felt was just a place where the metaphor put on shoes. If roulette could fund a reshoot, then roulette was a producer. If poker could buy 2 more days of film stock, shuffle up and deal. It's romantic to tell it that way until you watch the math. Wins happen, losses accumulate. A masterpiece is not collateral the house recognizes. Wells would soar on a place debtor dappered. Good night, and crash into logistics on a bad one. Crew waiting, reels light. The whole enterprise held together with charisma and IOUs. He didn't just gamble the bankroll. He gambled sleep, relationships, and reputation. The intangible credit card artists swipe against the future. He got some of the greatest images ever captured onto celluloid. He also bought those images at a rate of interest almost nobody can afford. The tragedy isn't that he lost. It's that he kept finding just enough wins to justify the next spin. Peter Lawford. Peter Lawford lived at the intersection where charm becomes currency. Handsome, connected, poised, he was the +1 and the event itself. As the Rat Pack's debonair Brit, he entered rooms that minted grace like coins. The problem with coins, they spend. Lawford played to expectations, the circulating spectacle of big numbers moving as casually as napkins. In those suites, losses look like theater props. But props must be paid for, and when career oxygen thinned and beloved connections dissolved, the tabs didn't. Without a bottomless revenue stream, gambling reverts to what it always was, a subtraction problem. The spiral isn't cinematic, it's administrative calls unreturned, collateral liquidated, favors strained until they break. Lawford's name shrank from marquise to footnote in the spaces where he once held court, and yet the impulse remained. One more roll, one more miracle to convert memory into money. The dice do not care about your resume. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis was a self-made comet. He knew the price of a steak because there'd been weeks he couldn't afford one. So when the checks hit, he let the yes out. Art, cars, clothes, and casino nights that turned success into fireworks. Las Vegas and Monte Carlo don't hide their intentions. They tell you in neon, "We are here to dazzle you into forgetting arithmetic." Curtis walked in, eyes open, and still found himself hypnotized. $100,000 in a night is a number that sticks even to someone who can earn it back. The problem isn't a single number. It's the habit of entering rooms where numbers lie. Gambling strains marriages not because money vanishes, though it does, but because the gambler vanishes with it, hours at a time. Inside a trance no spouse can join. Curtis, candid later, framed the shift plainly. The thrill that once felt like life started looking like a trap. Quitting the game gave him back a mirror he recognized. Cary Grant, the suave gambler who hid the losses. Cary Grant perfected the role of Cary Grant suave. Unflappable, elegant as a whisper. It's only human that he'd nurse a private rebellion against the myth. Cards in quiet clubs. Stakes high enough to sting but never high enough to leak. This was risk contained, pleasure engineered, image defended. If he dropped a small fortune over a weekend, the solution wasn't theatrics, it was paperwork. Sell a block of stock, make a call, keep the suit pressed. For a man who understood framing better than most directors, this made sense. Control the shot, keep the wide world out of the close-up. Why gamble at all? Perhaps to experience a version of himself not already mapped by public adoration. A man who could sweat a turn of the card and feel anonymous in a room full of whispers. It's not the vice that fascinates, it's the privacy. Grant proves that even the most composed men keep a door the press can't find. John Payne, the forgotten star who bet away his legacy. John Payne's face sits in the gallery of mid-century Hollywood's, the kind of leading man whose name on a poster promised a certain uprightness. Off-screen, he placed his trust elsewhere. The track. Not just wagers, but ownership stables, trainers. The sunk-cost logic that turns hobby into sinkhole. Horse. Racing sells a gentleman's fantasy. You can love a bloodline and still lose the mortgage. That belief is gambling's lone trick, and it never gets tired. When the ledger marched in one direction too long, assets followed. House, rights, the soft capital called reputation. The audience moved on. The man stayed in the stands. Smaller bets, same hope. The ritual that soothes even as it erodes. If there's a sadness deeper than losing, it's losing beautifully, with the patience of a true believer. Gambling wasn't the only vice in Golden Age Hollywood, and it wasn't always a villain. Sometimes it was a salve, sometimes a joke, sometimes a way of shaking hands in the night. But across these stories, pattern hums like neon. The bet that starts as a flirt becomes a habit. The habit becomes a hallway. The hallway turns narrow. Most of these men and women didn't lose because they were fools. They lost because the game is designed to turn appetite into odds. They walked in with charisma and left with stories, some expensive, some priceless, all stamped by the truth the pit bosses never say out loud. You're not gambling money, you're gambling time. And time is the only chip you can't win back. If a name here surprised you, hold the judgment and keep the lesson. If a story here felt too familiar, may it be a bell ringing from a safe distance. We understand more now. Compulsion isn't character. It's chemistry colliding with circumstance. Help exists. So does life after the last spin. If this tour through Hollywood's high-stakes underworld lit up your screen, tap like, subscribe, and ring the bell so our next deep dive finds you first.